space to write our code. Today's video is going to be about loops. Now, you might have well heard of this concept before because this is a very important and essential part in programming. What are loops is that we tend to use them just for repetition purposes. Like if we want to repeat some task again and again and again. So we use for loops, or we could use while loops. So these are like the most common loops that are used. And let's start by writing some piece of code. So what we could do is that first, suppose we have a scenario here and we have my name over here. So we have a Harris, all right? And I want to print my name so many times. So if I Control Alt and N, you would see that only one time it appeared on the screen. But notice if I have to have this print not just one time, but print multiple times. Now my code closed again. So what I would do, I don't want something to be repetitive and keep on doing again and again and again. What's the use of coding? You want to automate your task by using Python. And that's what the beauty of coding is that you want to create something which is easy. So we could use a for loop to it. So it's basically simple. It's just for, and then we just use something. So what we could do is that we could say for I in range, and then we have a range over here defined as 10, all right? And this colon indicates the indentation. So this is by default 4. And you can see that those dots are appearing. That tells me that indentation appears over here. And I'm going to just say over here for Harris, okay? So if I save this right now and Control Alt and N, you would see that this is appearing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 times. 10 times appearing. So what does it mean? It means it starts from 0. Now remember here, the computer starts always from 0. As humans, we know that we start from the other numbers, but computer starts from 0. And it went all the way to 9 and not 10. But it saw 10, but it didn't go to 10. So it means it went to 9, and it did 9 times. For instance, it went to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then it stopped because this is total 10. So it printed out 10 times. So that's how a for loop works. And what is this I over here, you might be saying? So this is basically a keyword where we have to activate using a for loop. This I is basically the thing that it's repeating. So this is called the iterative variable. You could name it anything you want. You could say something like iterative variable, and it would still work. I use that for short, and this is a convention what programmers use. You can see that it's printed out over here again. CLS this just to have this console screen cleaned, and over here you can see that it's repeating the same procedure. Now having a longer name or a shorter name, the preferred way is to stick with conventions. So it's just a convention to have I as your iterative variable, or then you could have a J if you have already I defined. So this is a basic code of Python. Now notice how simple and straightforward this is. If I was in C++ and I would just have to write a for loop, what I would do is first of all I have to include stuff. So I would have to include IOStream. And then I would have to be using namespace standard. And this is generally not necessary, but you would have to include it. So like you have to include a main and everything. So what am I doing over here? You would have to include a main, and then you would have to define a for loop like this. For int I is equal to 0. Notice that you have to define it and initialize it. And then you have to give a condition that how many times you want to run it. And then you would have to put the incrementation, decrementation. So you have to tell the postfix incrementer or decrementer, and then you would have to print out something like that. So something like hello world will now appear 100, not 100, yes, but 100 times. So over here will appear 100 times. Or like over here you could have 100 times just having this same thing exactly over here. So let me just put this in comments. So let's just compare. This is a script well, you could have to add another part over here, and it's basically not necessary, but you could have this return 0 at the end. And this is actually the proper C++ code to it. The same exact functionality which is being done over here. And let's just change it to hello world. Let's say hello world. and having how many lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, say, let me do that again. Okay, so having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So this is 10 lines of code. And then over here is just 1, 2. So what is efficient, what is easier, this Python code is. So let me run this, and you would see now hello world will appear not only 10 times, now 100 times equals. We change the range to 100. So it's going to start from 0, which is already a fine, like initialized, to all the way to 100. So basically, let's save this code, Control Alt and N. Now you see that it's printing out 100 pretty fast. And what I did is that I've done a mistake at the end, so I'll just ignore this, and let me just complete this again, and let me just run this code again. I don't want to do that, and I just want to run the code. So what you would do is that you would cross this terminal screen, and you would do Control Alt and N, and you'd see that this is already printed out. Amazing. That's how efficient Python is. Now we have another loop to do this. So ignore all of this and just cross this out just for a general purpose. And now let's have a while loop to perform this exact same task. Now we'd have one condition over here that, suppose we have a condition that doesn't even happen. So by default, this is happening in an incremented way. So like it loops in one time. So it does 1. So basically the initial value of this was 0. I was 0, and its range is from 10. So basically its range is starting from, it has to go all the way to 10, but not including 10. So what it does is that it prints hello world. It increments the value of that incrementer. So what it does is that, now what does plus plus mean is I plus 1. So basically it increments by 1. So now we'd have 1 over here. Now 1 will go over here, and now it's not going to be assigned 0 but 1. So it's going to check the range, and now if it was 100 over here, let's say, so now it's going to check, okay, the range is still in here, so let's print another one out. Now it'll increment it to 2, so it's always going to increment by 1. So it's going to say, okay, so now it's in range. Does it fit in here? Yes. So if the range exceeds, like if the Python code matches to 100, like for instance, then it's going to see, okay, the range is 100. So, okay, I didn't want to touch 100. That's what Python says. So let me break out of the loop. It breaks out and the code finishes. So that's the basic general understanding of how loops work. And generally for loops. And let's have another insight on this by using a while loop. And basically I'm giving this in a very easy way, explaining it a very simple way, where others would take hours on just loops and all of this. And what I would say is that having this done through code is much more simpler and much straight to the point. So having a while loop, and you want to create an infinite loop that would never stop and would continuously run. You could have this by using just a true symbol over here. And by doing this, you have this colon operator. And this you have to necessarily include, because once you don't do this, but the Python won't know that where is the loop starting from. When you have this colon operator, the Python knows that it's starting from there. So what it would do is that we hit this enter key, and now we would do something inside of this. So having something printing out 1,000,000 or probably infinite times, and something like, let's say Haris, this is my name, so let me Control Alt and N, and you see now we didn't run it. So basically there is some errors, and let me just save this out, and let's see, it's not going to give us any kind of error, and program would say it's perfectly fine. But over here you see that there is true is not defined. So you would see that there's red indentation error, and this is called IntelliSense. And IntelliSense is like a code completion, parameter info, quick info, and member list. And this is the beauty, and it tells me where am I. It's saying undefined variable true, pylint. So it's code linting. It's a feature provided in VS Code. So if I just have to do this capital T, now you'd see if I save this code, that squiggly red line, scary one, just finished, and our code is easy and error-free. So notice that this is not an error. This is an infinite loop, and I would just type it over here. It's an infinite loop, and you could just save this and just run it. So let's run this code, Control Alt and N. You see now this is gonna go on forever, and you would see probably here my machine's fan working, and I don't want to do that, so I just quickly Control X this. So well, it's not pausing, so I would have Control Z, and it won't respond to me. So you don't have to break this code out. So like basically you can't do anything, and you would have to cross this out. So this is not what we want. We want a condition specifying how much time do we want to run this. Before that, we could create a variable. So we'd say num is equal to 0. Let's say 0. Or let's have 1. So basically we want the number. So it's saying while the number does not equal. So now this is the negation operator, and it says not equal. So when the number not equals to 100, okay, so this is gonna print out this that much times. So basically it's gonna go here, and what's it gonna do is we're gonna have to specify the increment over here. So we're gonna say number is equal to number plus 1. Also another way to say this is number plus equal to 1. So that's another way to say it. Save this code. Now you would see that this is 1. So what it would do is that if it equals to 100, it's gonna stop. So basically it's gonna print out at 99 times, but we want 100 times, so we start from 0. So we have a 0, and it says, okay, it's not 100, print Harris, and then it's gonna say plus 1. It's gonna go over here, it's gonna see that it's still not 100 because now the value would be 1. So it'd go over here and we'd check it's not 100, so we'd print out it and increment the value to 2. And then do it again, increment the value to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way when it reaches 100. Like for instance, let's say when it reaches 99. Checks it's not equal to 100, it prints out it. So basically we have it 100 times because we're including 0. So it's 0 to 99 so far, which is 100 times. And when it increments to 100, it goes back over here in the loop. So it's basically like going circles and circles until it reaches this part, and it says it's 100, so it just breaks it out. So it breaks out the loop, and that's it. So let's save the code, and we just print out over here something that says loop broke. Okay, so loop broke. So plus equal to 1 plus equal num is equal to num plus 1. Also another way to say that is like this. Save this code. Now we're going to run this through our CMD. So let's learn through that. Open up here, and over here we have a Python series, right? This is our folder, this is our path. So we Control C this. We go to our CMD. And what we do here is that we have to break this out. So let me just quit this. And I would just use quit function. And now what I would do is I would CLS this, and you don't have to do this. And all I have to do is change directory, and I'm going to that path. Now I'm inside that path. Now you could use the dir command to see and view what's happening inside over here. So you have a calculator py we created. We have a code.py, and we have a temp code runner file. So we want to have all this one activated. So what we do is basically we have Python installed already. So what we do is basically Python, and now we want that code to run. So we say Python code.py. That's it. And there you go. The code ran 100 times and then broke right after that. So that was your Python program. My VS Code unfortunately isn't responding, so what I would do is I would cross this out and I would refresh the page. So I would just go to VS Code, and there you go. Right in here. Now I would run this code, and there you go. Our code, it worked successfully. Congratulations, this was our code, and I hope you liked it. I hope you understood the concept behind while loops and for loops, and remember, we are going to be using this in the future, so don't say that this was it. And now we'll do a little bit of conditionals, and we could have just done it in the beginning, but we took out all that fun part, and conditionals are really simple, and what you're going to see is that we're going to create a new file for this. So this was our code, and let's just go back over here.